It seems like it's a perfect storm at the moment for the global economy, Mikio.
Yes, indeed. There is a lot of concern out there with all the topics that you very correctly mentioned. However, since I am based in Japan now, and I just was having a look at the PMIs, I think it's fair to say that there's also exceptions. And one of that exception is Japan. While the yen is weak, that's actually a positive, at least in my book. And it's a country, one of the very few, if not the only major economy that doesn't face the problems that the others are facing right now when it comes to inflation. So that is a notable exception.
So what does, I mean, the Bank of Japan didn't do anything last week, but, there are also elements of the economy which perhaps don't benefit from the weakness of the yen, but on the other hand, there is a vast body which does here. So tell me about where the, I suppose, the weakness really for the economy comes in, but what's the chief strength? And, I know you're not equities, but necessary, but is Japan, with it looking cheap, a buying opportunity?
I think so too. I think it definitely is, and we did actually increase our allocation to Japan. Now, there is a small caveat because the global situation is, let's say, a bit challenging right now. But we do think that Japan has certainly the potential to outperform, or let's rather say to continue to outperform. And I would push back against the claim that there are sectors of the economy that do not benefit from the weak yen. I mean, yes, obviously not everybody benefits from any single factor at the same time, but the net effect is just overwhelmingly positive. Japan is a net creditor, overseas assets of households, of the state, of companies, they are in hard currencies mostly. So the net, the weak yen is a big plus on aggregate and on net. Beyond that, it's also the small fact that Japan is now on a real effective exchange rate basis, as cheap as it was when we had the Bretton Woods system, which was, of course, a system that was designed to help countries like Japan and Germany, which basically had to start from zero, regain their competitiveness. So this is an extremely positive environment, especially because the Bank of Japan is under no pressure to raise interest rates, under no economic fundamental pressure, at least, because basically, if you look at inflation expectations for the long term, they're just about at 2%. In other words, Japan may now finally have the chance to hit its 2% inflation target for good. So that's
Mikio, as much as we talk about the yen, it is the Chinese yuan that is shaping the currencies in this part of the world, given that China is a major trading partner for most of Asian nations. I mean, how destabilizing might that be?
Well, that's not a good thing, definitely, and that's one of the reasons why we're underweight in emerging Asia. The strong dollar, while it is, well, we talked about Japan, it's not generally a positive thing for most other countries, be it emerging ones, as is mostly the case in Asia, or even in Europe, albeit for other reasons related to commodities or their exposure to commodities and their reliance on Russian oil. So that's definitely a negative thing for Asia. For now, it's not something that is as difficult as it used to be in the past, but it's a headwind.
Is the yuan already reflecting the weak fundamentals of the Chinese economy?
That's very hard to say, because you would, in order to be able to say that, you would have to let it float and let the market determine where the appropriate exchange rate is. That said, I would think that, since we don't know a lot of things of the situation within the Chinese internal economy, and we also don't know really what kind of strategy they will use in the medium to longer term to address the property bubble or the unwinding, let's say, of the property bubble, it's very difficult to attach a level that would sound, at least where you would have a similar conviction as you have in the case of the yen, where you can definitely say it's completely undervalued by any measure.
Mikio, final question. When do we get to 7.2?
7.2 in what? Inflation in the U.S., I presume?
No, talking about the yuan level.
I will decline to answer that, as I honestly do not know, but I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if we see it a lot lower than it is today. Whether that's going to be a long-term level or not, it's a different question. But I think there is still pressure to come there.